31 years I have salvaged the dead ships of the choke, and not once did one of them come down warm. Number 11 did. I felt the shudder before I heard it, that particular bone-deep concussion a hull makes when it gives up the last of its altitude and lets the rock have it. I was 40 minutes out on the ridge trail, hauling a sled of stripped copper coil back to the wreck I call home, the one the trade post still logs as number 6. By the time I crested the last rise, 11 was a black wound in the frost, ticking as it cooled, its emergency strobe stuttering red against a sky already gone the color of an old bruise. I should have called it in. Frontier law on the choke is simple. A fresh wreck belongs to whoever logs the claim first, and whoever logs it first owns whatever's still warm inside, cargo, fuel cells, sometimes worse. I have built a life on knowing that law and keeping to it. I came to this moon with nothing but a welding kit and a debt I am still paying down, and the choke gave me a trade where most other places would only have given me a grave. 31 years of reading hulls for a living teaches you what a ship sounds like when it dies clean and what it sounds like when it doesn't. I logged nothing that night. I went down the slope instead because something under all those years of listening to ships die heard a second sound underneath the ticking metal. Small, irregular, alive. She was wedged behind a coolant baffle that hadn't melted, knees to her chest, skin the grey of old ash going pale where the warning lights still touched her face. Her eyes were too large for a child's face by any measure I knew, and they did not look at me with anything I would call panic. Weary, uncertain, the look of something that had already decided help wasn't coming and had gone quiet instead of asking for it. She had a length of fused copper wire wound 3 times around one fist, gripped so hard her small knuckles had gone the color of the wire itself. I did not reach for her. I have hauled enough hesitant strays out of enough wrecks to know better. I crouched at the hatch, put my hand flat on the deck plate between us, and waited the way you wait for a signal to clear static. After a long minute she came to me on her own, because the alternative was the cold, and the cold was worse than a stranger. I carried her back to number 6 wrapped in the liner from my own coat, picking my way over rubble that had been a hull's worth of bracing once, my breath fogging in the dark, hers barely visible at all. She weighed almost nothing. That is the thing about this work I never tell the agents at the trade post, how light the ones who survive always are, like the wreck took everything off them that wasn't bone. I did not sleep that night. I sat at my workbench with her curled in the bunk behind me and ran the choke's traffic logs on the old receiver I keep tuned to scavenger band, and past midnight I heard exactly what I had been listening for. A crew, 3 vessels, hailing each other in the clipped shorthand raiders use when they think no one decent is listening. They were coming for 11, not for the cargo, for loose ends. A wreck with a witness still breathing is a wreck somebody else can contest in court, and contested wrecks do not pay. Dead witnesses settle claims a great deal faster than living ones. I have known men like that my whole life on this moon. I do not respect their arithmetic, but I understand it, because I have run colder sums myself in leaner years, off hulls I did not ask enough questions about. I was not going to let them balance their books with her. 3 days. That is how long I kept her hidden while the raider crew worked 11 over, stripping it to its ribs not 40 meters from my own wreck, never once thinking to search the husk of an old number 6 that had clearly been picked clean years before anyone with sense would bother. She learned my workbench in those 3 days. She learned which valve hissed when the heater cycled and stopped flinching at it by the second night. On the first day she would not eat from my hand, only from the bench itself, after I had set the food down and stepped back, a rule she made without a word, and one I respected without asking why. By the second day she had started watching what my hands did instead of watching the door, which on this moon is the closest thing to trust I have ever been given by anything that could still run if it wanted to. She did not speak. Whatever language she carried wasn't built for a human throat to answer in. But on the second evening, She took the fused wire from her fist for the first time since I'd found her and pressed it into my palm instead, careful, like she was lending me something she expected back. I did not understand what she meant by it until the third night, when one of the Raider crew's scanners finally caught a heat signature it should not have, coming from a wreck that was supposed to be dead. I had 31 years on them. They had nothing on this field but weapons and a deadline. Number 6 had been my home long enough that I knew every system in her down to the last failed relay, including the auxiliary coolant manifold. I had never bothered to fully gut because the parts inside weren't worth the trade post price. I knew which hatch stuck, which corridor flooded with vapor if you cracked the wrong valve, which deck plate rang hollow under a boot, and which one didn't. A Raider crew sees a stripped hull and reads it as empty. I had spent 3 decades learning to read a dead ship as a structure that still had things to say, if you knew which valve to turn. When they came through the airlock, 3 of them, helmet lamps lit, weapons carried low and casual the way men carry them when they expect no resistance from an old woman and a hiding child. I was not where they expected me to be. They called my name once, the trade post name, friendly as a knife held flat. I did not answer. The manifold I cracked open behind them was not the harmless one they assumed it was. I had spent the day rerouting it myself, with the copper wire she'd given me twisted into the relay that mattered most, my hands steadier than they had any right to be, because some part of me had understood, even before I worked out why, that she had handed me exactly the piece I would need. I will not describe what venting 31 years of stored coolant pressure into a sealed 3-meter corridor does to the men standing in it. I will say it was fast, and it was final, and none of them came within reach of her. When the crew's lead ship hailed afterward, demanding to know what had happened to its boarding team, I told them the truth, that number 6 was an old, gutted wreck not worth the fuel to search, and that anyone who came looking for whatever they thought they'd lost in it would find nothing waiting for them. They did not come back. Men who run that kind of arithmetic cross a job off the list fast once it stops paying. I filed the claim on Lifeboat 11 the next morning, the way the law requires, first salvager, witness accounted for. I listed the witness as a dependent minor under my guardianship, the way the law allows if you know which clerk to ask and which form to file twice. The clerk at the trade post, who has known me 31 years and asked me exactly nothing in all that time, stamped it without a word and told me my heater credits had gone up. She sleeps in the bunk in number 6 now, and in the last month she has started making a sound I am fairly sure is laughter, though it took me 3 tries to recognize it as anything other than a relay catching. She still keeps a length of copper wire close, not the one she gave me. I left that one threaded through the manifold where it earned its place, but a new one coiled loose around her wrist, like she is keeping the habit alive on purpose. Some mornings she hands it to me anyway, out of nothing more than the rhythm of it, and I take it and I give it back, and that is the whole of the conversation, and it is enough. 31 years I salvaged the dead out of this field and called it a living. One night I found something in a smoking hull that was not dead, and after that I stopped only doing that.